Look, um, so uh, there's another topic that I would like to discuss that, heavily influences people in their mind and their progression or regression in life. Uh, it's a very complicated thing that I've kind of had to figure out myself to progress in ways that, um, might make you feel crazy, um, or could get out of hand if you do it wrong. Um, so basically, there is pathologies and mental complexes, and um, they develop based around various things, different variables, you'd say, that um, are subconscious, and uh, it's hard to really and go into yourself and your own mind, your history, and your habits, and actually um, compare this with other people, even, or just figure out what you're doing with yourself. And that's why I define things such ways as like duality and progression, regression, growth, or devolution, because ultimately it comes down to some simple things. And you can manifest some very good things or some very bad things. And for me, I've been on some extremes of at least the bad side. And I'm trying to get back to a good side, from when I was little, when these things built up too much for me to control, or not have slowly degrade me into the person that I had become. So um, it's a very complicated thing. So it goes off of your interpretations that you've built up habitually, and this falls into your worldviews, your beliefs, how you process or repress different things. And I'm trying to like come up with an example while I'm talking. Uh, well, let's say my interpretation of reality was very mentally destructive, and it's not something that somebody can fix for you. It's not something that uh, you might even be able to fix yourself under uh, certain worldviews and such things. Um, I say a lot. I should just be quiet. So for me, growing up, it was kind of like, I wanted to be happy in life. I wanted to enjoy life. And I wanted to be with people that I could enjoy with and be happy with, and who enjoyed my company and connected with me. Now, for me, it was very difficult connecting with people. So I would have to generally get on their level to connect with them. And when I was younger, it wasn't that big of an issue. It was, kids being kids, having fun, being dumb, sharing common interests, getting in trouble, not paying attention to any of that, and just doing us. And, uh, we did some bad stuff, but we weren't very aware of the things that we were doing that was destructive. And our parents, they wanted more control over us, but they would lash out at us and they wouldn't help emotionalize certain things with us to get us to deviate from our own interpretations or habits and such things that we felt were okay being kids, and not understanding the gravity of life, their wisdom as parents who have been raised wrong themselves and lived such things themselves. And um, there's a certain point where that becomes, when you lose certain things, living that kind of young, hedonistic, loving, and enjoyment based lifestyle, that, you know, where your innocence kind of extends its limitations and you start understanding that uh, those things don't actually make you too happy anymore. And you, for me, it was, we moved around a lot. So I started off in Mississippi where I had friends there. And then we moved to Maryland and I made some good friends there with my siblings and all. And we had fun. I was starting to go a worse route there. Uh, I was getting in trouble even with the police. I got, by 10 years old, or maybe 11 or 12, I was booked twice. Once for stealing a bicycle, and I ended up like riding it back to the place or around the place that I had taken it from because I had to go through there. And cops, they weren't very nice to me either. One cop was an asshole, but I wasn't. All I saw was, oh, he's an asshole. But he saw some kid that there's some parents letting this kid be a dumbass and ruin his life. And he was probably angry and, wanted to scare me. So I understand that. But, good guy, bad guy. Uh, so back to the point. I was moved around a lot. So from Maryland, we moved to Montana, and I would visit Mississippi where my dad lived. And, I would pretty much be in anticipation all year just to go down there and visit and see my friends again. And, I've forgotten the friends in Maryland for the most part. I still miss them a lot, but they weren't too good of friends either. And, we were being stupid and, you know, couldn't connect as deeply. And, that's around when I started uh, wanting, a girlfriend too. So my focuses were deviated fairly young. Um, and uh, basically, that anticipation for that fulfillment that I wanted would keep me from, exploring other things or even thinking about other things because I was hurt, and that was the only thing that was really helping me. And nobody really sat there and like talked me through it, helped me emotionalize it. So it was a cyclical thing, you know. All all year I'd basically be depressed, lonely, sitting online, distracting myself on video games, and uh, you know, stuff that a kid might do when they're young. Because it was about 12 or 13 that I moved to Montana, and people were different there too. Maybe they were raised better. You know, a lot of people go to Montana to escape society and raise their kids up right. And it was a culture shock as well because people were so different. And I was just getting out of my, little wankster, Eminem, Afro Man, gorillas type stuff, you know, uh, trying to be a little hard boy up in Maryland and suburbia, basically. And Montana was different. You know, we lived in a small town, and people's priorities were more balanced. It was a more typical uh, high school life that you might see in movies, even. My sister actually suffered that as being bullied by some of her friends uh, that basically turned on her. And, that was pretty shitty. I never really got bullied because I just kept to myself, kept my head down, and I didn't like people. So, you know, I was just focused on my work, trying to keep up because this was around middle school when I stopped going to sleep. And even when I was sleeping, nobody really fucked with me. I guess they just recognized, I was just too depressed to be bothered. Something like that, maybe. um, so that was actually very lucky, maybe. Uh, my teachers, they always tried to, but they couldn't reach me, um, sadly. I'm sure that hurt them a lot. So I built this cycle of interpretations of like life, being more depressive and different things like that, being so unhappy as well. Some things would give me anxiety, like fear, because you don't want to die living a life so miserably. You want a fulfilling life. And as I built it up more and more and more, it got more and more out of hand. It wasn't something that, I'd say was genetics. It was situational, environmental, uh, subjective, uh, based upon my interpretations. And, eventually I did seem bipolar, um, having even at some points, anxiety. Different points, I was basically a hypochondriac. I had separation issues with people that, a girlfriend, because eventually I came to get hurt multiple times by women because I was already broken so young that I didn't have normal relationships. I didn't know how to enjoy myself with people too much anymore. And around I think 16, um, I had a near-death experience where I got lost out in the woods in Montana hunting, and it was like negative 10 or 15 out. And I'll just say, sorry, I had to pause that. I'll just say that I had some people with me that I cared a lot about. And, you know, I was hoping that one of them would know what to do. And they didn't. And maybe the situation's more overblown to me than what it really was. But we had been walking, into the woods, finding different spots to hang out at, just wait, see maybe if deer comes by. Uh, was pretty stupid. Um, just lost track of the time, lost track of the weather. Uh, didn't uh, didn't understand how dangerous of a situation it might be, and ultimately, it ended up getting pretty dark, and we were pretty far from uh, where we needed to be. And there was like a foot of snow on the ground, and excuse me. Let me pause it real quick. Anyways, um, we had left a trail, and I knew that we could use that trail to get back. Um, but it was getting dark out. So we had a flashlight, and I figured, maybe we use that, but the battery was getting very low. So, I figured we could at least follow it enough to where if anything goes wrong, that maybe we would be still on the trail the next day and potentially set up a little camp or something. And then I realized that we have snow clouds, and uh, I didn't want to uh, follow a trail that was about to disappear, you because I think at some point I heard some cross country dogs barking. Sorry. So I heard some cross country dogs uh, running across, and it was kind of off in the distance, away from our trail, and it was basically a crapshoot, because I felt if we followed that trail, we might follow it and get lost. If it snowed or we got stuck out there overnight, there's a lot of danger in that. And that's what I saw. And hearing that dog sledding person, whoever, that person that was dog sledding, uh, I figured if we went that way, we would at least end up on a trail that led somewhere. But the thing in Montana is some of these dog sledding trails might even go into Canada. Some of them can be 20, 50, 100 miles long, and I knew that because I've heard of the dog sledding stuff. And that was a big risk in itself because the person was gone, and I didn't know where to, and I didn't know if they would be back. I didn't know any of that. But we went that direction, and you know, I used some of my hunting gear to start a fire underneath a tree. The snow didn't melt it, or the snow didn't put it out or anything falling off the tree or underneath it. We got pretty lucky there. And then the rest of the night we were breaking trees off of branches, trying to dry wood out so we could keep the fire going, setting up, stuff around us to keep the wind off. And it was so cold that you had to sit so close to the fire that one of the people got burns on their legs from just sitting so close. And I was trying to stay warm as I could be, and I still ended up with frostbite on my nose the next day when we got out. So we got off of that trail, we got on the trail the next day, and it turned out to be a figure eight. And we basically followed it all the way through, and then we went back to the campfire because we knew which way was out since we knew it was a figure eight. And then we followed that. And then once I got to the end of that trail, that led to another road that would lead back down to another highway. When I got to the end of that trail, there was some hunters there just prospecting a good hunting ground. And, I ran up to them, and I had gone ahead of the other people behind me that were kind of tired. And yeah, it was very traumatic, and I didn't ever bring it back up. I never discussed it properly with anybody really, and I just wanted to forget it, distract, act like it didn't happen. But the fear that sunk in, you know, the immense worries, the pain, the grief of potentially dying, um, even just praying to God and stuff like that. it it became something that became recessed in the back of your mind. You just want to ignore it. And I remember for the longest time, wood smoke was just didn't like it. But I always liked to smoke wood smoke. I always liked to fires and stuff. But after that, it's not the same. But anyways, that had built up an anxiety and fear, and you know, uh, shutting down, and if you didn't process it right, like I did, like I didn't process it right myself, then there's going to be some issues that crop up later, because it creates a habit of interpretations and you know basically a pathology that is being built up slowly. And it took maybe uh, 4 or 5 years later that I actually started exhibiting signs of anxiety. And it wasn't just that. It wasn't just that one little trauma. It was the whole culmination of everything that I built up, even leading to that point that disallowed me from interpreting things in such ways that I could process it and not repress it. So that became a very deep-seated issue itself, but there was also a culmination of many, many deep-seated issues just being raised from, and the types of stuff that I had to ignore, types of stuff that I just didn't know how to process because nobody really helped me. And people will be like, "Oh, he just is the way he is," or that's who you are, that's how your brain is, that's how this or that is. And I reject that because I've come out the other side now. I understand that you can shape your brain, and that it is your brain being shaped that develops it into what it is in the first place, that comes up in an MRI or the chemical processes in which it operates and certain things like that. The different various interpretations that you will have in life, and how those manifest your emotions, feelings, and all these different things. So when I started fearing and suffering anxiety and stuff with like hypochondria, I think that was around 17 or 18. I was watching like Breaking Bad and stuff, taking on the gravity of mortality. And it surfaced a lot of anxiety that I really enjoyed the show, but I was really kind of, my brain couldn't get around that, like the mortality aspect of it. And I didn't really like the way other people were doing things to process those things, and it made me not understand how other people process through things too. So I was very subjective, closed off, maybe even you could say narcissistic to a fair degree, because I couldn't understand like how people were developing themselves because I didn't understand how to develop myself as well. So, um, I felt very different. I felt very alone. And even with family or friends or any of that, uh, I just had no way to get past those things because nobody was there to really help open me up and explore these things with me. So um, it became cyclical until it slowly degraded me into, having a hypochondriac type thing where, like, I look stuff up, or, me being a smoker for so long, worried I might have lung cancer. And I have no way to go and get, uh, a physical or, get checked up. And I still don't. I just ain't, I'm not afraid anymore. Uh, and a lot of it is beginning in fears like that. And, you know, those different phases I had was all fears. I'd start dating a girl and I would understand that, I'm not that great of a person. I'm not that capable of a person. And I was hoping that maybe somebody would love me and understand me enough and care enough to dig into me and help develop me in ways that I couldn't. Um, so obviously that would not work. Um, and uh, it hurt me a lot in many ways with multiple girls, uh, starting pretty young. Um, my first love, I was so depressed. She left me for someone else, and I don't blame her. Not really. Uh, you just can't fix everybody, and she was a kid herself, and it hurt me. And at the time, I felt like I had been ghosted and ditched and abandoned, and I did have abandonment problems, and I couldn't let go of that, let go of her for many years, and you know that made it where the next woman, I didn't, I wasn't as open or as trusting and different stuff like that. And, it became cyclical again, where uh, I didn't understand what had happened inside of me in the first place, and nobody else really did either. And I wasn't too open with people. I just wanted to connect and hopefully have them dig into me. And nobody really did. And, at that age, that's not an issue that should be anybody else's. So, um, sorry, my throat's dry. Um, this had grown me into a person that was just incompatible with people. And being that alone, starting so young, even though I had people online to talk to, it was just a distraction. I was trying to be on their level, not on my own level, not express myself or open up. I was just, talking to talk. Um, Video games were a lot of it, and I would lash out a lot. I would troll and flame people where I could without being too dishonorable, so to say, without being um, too much of a burden on people. Because I never wanted to be a burden on people. I never wanted to make them feel extra bad or anything. I just wanted to get mine in, uh, where people might deserve a thing or two, maybe. Um, so I probably wasn't your typical troll. Maybe I was. I don't know, but I'd never intentionally try and hurt people deeply. I'd never intentionally try and hurt anybody. That's always been a thing since I was young, even with women. Even with my lust, I would not want to hurt somebody, so I always tried to stay as honest about things as I could, but I would lie myself into more feelings than I really had because I didn't understand how to connect, so it was more hopeful that things would work out. And then when things would go wrong, I'd close up and I'd lose that trust and I wouldn't know how to work through certain emotions and it hurt a lot. And they would close up and things would just evolve. We'd be unhappy. They'd eventually leave me or, you know, maybe, I'm trying to remember how many I left. Not very many. Um, yeah. So I might have been a bit desperate. Anyways, all of them were pretty good girls too, so I won't put that past anybody. I won't blame anybody for me being broken. I think they tried, you know. So, uh, albeit some of them were really fucked up. Like, they just, yeah, let's not go there. So, uh, the cyclical nature, where you have an interpretation. And let's say into politics, you, when confronted over and over and over again with people that won't even try and understand you, you start bickering and, maybe even mocking them, maybe even making fun of them, or, over, over internalizing certain things that, uh, would lead to conflict instead of understanding or capability to be able to reproach people on certain issues that would progress in a way that you could actually discuss them openly because they're kind of doing the same thing, but depending on your approach in the first place is dependent on whether you will make any progress at all because these people see things a little differently and they don't want to be reproached on something that they feel is right, you know? So this creates even a cyclical nature with each other. And it goes in relationships as well. I want to finish that thought though, because if you actually go through and reproach things properly, or at least try to very hard, you'll be able to make some progress and build a deeper understanding of how these people work internally. You'll feel much better about the discussion and about even if you don't reach them specifically, like that person specifically, if you can get them to open up about deeper levels of certain things, you'll understand more deeply how they actually feel, and you'll be able to actually maybe progress with someone else that might feel similarly. And that's a very important thing if we don't want to have this divide increase and increase and increase until we go to war. So within relationships, that's like a big jump, like correlate things together. But within relationships, let's not go with a single person, but we'll go with types of people. Where, let's say there's a person that worked on their personal growth, and there's people that haven't. Um, let's just call it a maturity thing, where where you get in a relationship and it goes wrong, kind of like some mine did. Uh, you know, I didn't want to blame myself entirely, but I never blamed other people entirely either. I just felt like it didn't work for many various reasons. Some people did some things that close things up, and then that builds a cyclical nature where that person's next relationship is going to manifest some of those things, that the interpretations, the distrust, the walls built up, the habits of the person is going to manifest something else in another relationship, that somebody has to have grown past that to understand it, or at least sought a deeper understanding of it from a non-biased, non-motivated, basically like a pure, lovingly compassionate understanding from an outside perspective, maybe even studied into it for some people. And, I always liked a broken woman who has some issues, because I could relate. But I didn't understand how to fix them because I didn't understand how to fix myself. So when you get into something like that and things just keep going worse, and maybe you demonize the other person to feel better about yourself instead of understand their feelings, then you'll feel even more alone. You'll feel more uncomfortable with that type of person, or men, or women. And some of them are fucked up. Like, people who live by lust might abuse other people in pretty deep ways. And, you know, emotionally abuse them is what I mean. Not, like going around cheating. Well, I'm saying like they would go around cheating, or, maybe even trying to convince the person some stuff that they don't like, and not actually connect in the bedroom. That's one that I've had an issue with. And certain things that, if someone doesn't understand what they're allowing to seep into them deep down, then they will fall prey to that cyclical nature that will eventually create an animosity between men and women, where, a woman wants to be more appreciated, or a man wants to be more appreciated, or either one wants more care, more compassion, more understanding before conflict, certain things like that. And this would create a massive societal issue, or even make it where a parent doesn't even know how to raise their own children, you know. But these things go deeper and deeper and deeper. It doesn't stop at relationships or politics. It goes into friendships. It goes into, understanding anybody. So, we're already at 24 minutes. It's a pretty long one. I don't know how to conclude it, how to leave the lesson imprinted. But I would say everybody should be scared of what they are allowing themselves to be grown into. And everybody should be careful, very careful of what they allow to let affect them deeply, or what they do to other people to affect them deeply. Because most of the issues we have today is just from that. So, God bless them. Be careful.